In this episode, we're diving into a topic that hits a little close to home for a lot of us. It's called burnout. You know that feeling. You're leading your business, showing up for your team, pushing toward your goals, and somewhere along the way, you disappear in the equation. If leadership has started to feel more like survival than success, you are not alone. Today, we're going to go beyond the surface. We're talking about real burnout, real boundaries, and how to lead without losing yourself in the process. So, if you're ready to stop glorifying the grind and start leading with balance and clarity, this episode is for you. Hi, my name is Shri, and I'm a social media manager who helps doctors and lawyers gain an edge online. My team and I help your practice build a social media presence that attracts and retains patients and clients. And joining me today is someone who's walked this road, is a leadership coach and growth strategist who helps high achieving professionals go from exhausted to empowered. Her name is Colby Casoria, and I'm so excited to have you here. Now,
Yes,
let me
so
ask you,
excited to be here.
what is your favorite thing to do when you're not talking about real estate, growth, leadership? What do you like to do?
So I love seeing live music. My career actually started out in the entertainment industry just because I was super passionate about attending concerts. And so I worked in that world for a while. And I still, even though I no longer am in that world, see a ton of concerts. I also live in Southern California where I'm lucky enough to play beach volleyball year round. So that's a big way that I move my body. And I recently, in the past couple months, have gotten involved in throwing pottery, which has been a really cool creative outlet for me, and actually has been helping me professionally in ways that I never could have imagined, because there's so much like acceptance of failure involved in that craft, and it's just really kind of exercising that muscle. So yeah.
I love that you brought up the whole idea of how to accept something that, at first it's going to not work out as you planned, but this is how you can incorporate in your life. Because when was the first time you got into pottery that you realized, wait a minute, this is helping me more than I realized?
Almost immediately. I really have only been doing it for 2 months, but in my first class, I immediately noticed the effect it was going to have on me, because I, in so many ways, am such a perfectionist. And there's actually an element of pottery that does require perfection. You need your bowl, your piece of clay needs to be perfectly centered on the wheel in order to throw a bowl or a cup or something that is cylindrical. So there is perfection. So it kind of it scratches that itch in my brain, but it's also like such a messy and like you run into failure. So failure, I say that with air quotes. I don't know if this, can people see me on this?
Yeah.
Okay. So, your pieces, you'll be like really like building to something amazing, and then suddenly it will just collapse on you. And you need to just be in total acceptance with that process. So it's less about the end goal and really more about like the practice and the journey and like what you're getting out of the experience of, the start to finish, whether or not your piece makes it to the end or not.
Ooh, I love this. I would love to hear from the audience, whether you're catching the live or the replay. Like, what do you like to do on the weekends? And I would love to have you answer why. So we have Kenny from Houston, actually Sugarland. What's going on? And Lisa, thank you for joining us. Okay, let's get into this really hot topic, because burnout looks and feels different for so many people. But for you, Colby, like, you know, can you take us back to that first time in your life when you hit burnout, and how did you realize like this is burnout?
Yeah, absolutely. When I worked in the music industry for 7, 8 years, and it was a really fast-paced, highly demanding industry. And during COVID, I really found myself getting self-reflective on like, why am I doing this work and how is it connected to the greater purpose of my life? Because I am working what feels like 24/7, and I just don't feel very connected to the journey or the destination. And so as I started to kind of look at my big why and the big picture of what I wanted for my life, and I actually was developing carpal tunnel like in one of my hands. So my body itself was experiencing physical symptoms of burnout, and I was feeling more and more disconnected from the journey and the destination. And so that's when I realized I was burnout. I wasn't energized by my work.
Absolutely. Like that could disconnect what that feels like. How do we reconnect with ourselves? That first sign,
Mhm.
we sometimes ignore it. I know for me, when I worked a 9 to 5, that moment that I would disconnect from what I loved doing, that
Mhm.
was my first sign like, "Hey, that's burnout." But I
Mhm.
didn't recognize it until I became an entrepreneur and I really sat down and realized, like, this is burnout.
Mhm.
This can't continue anymore, and we need to stop. And over time, I've built some things in between to help me not hit burnout. But the signs, being aware is the most important.
Mhm.
So, what do you see is something that is common in your clients that you saw even yourself as like people that are ignoring those signs?
Yeah, I think one of the most common signs that you're nearing or experiencing burnout is if you find yourself saying, like, there's just not enough time in the day. And that's a pretty good sign that you're probably lacking boundaries around your work and your home life. And you also probably, you might be at a point where you need to outsource some of the work that you're doing. And that's where kind of digging into where your strengths and your weaknesses are, how much is your time worth, and how can you bring in other team members to help you so that you can get some of that time back.
Mm. Bringing in team members. So many times we get stuck in like, I don't want to outsource. I don't want to get help, but I am having this discussion with people and I say, well, what would happen if you were able to, instead of worrying about having to do that task, now you don't have to do that task because you've
Mhm.
already trained the person. They know what to do and now you have time to do something else. What would you do? Because I was that person. I was like, well, I have to do this, I have to do that.
Yep.
And when I started to let go of some of that, even shows, I had like 4 shows at one time.
Mhm.
To go down to two, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of time. There's a lot of things that I can do. So
Mhm.
that's important. Time is valuable. So before you created your current system for leadership wellness, what was your relationship with boundaries of work, self-worth?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good question. It still is, and it was an ongoing journey. Certainly, as I was transitioning out of the entertainment and music industry and into coaching and into the real estate space, I really took a long, hard look at what was working for me and what wasn't. I had a friend say to me at the time, sometimes you just need to create some space in your life to figure out what it is you really want. And so for me, creating space was actually leaving my corporate entertainment industry role. And, that wasn't with reflection. It didn't come without fear and challenges and obstacles. But I chose to take a little bit of time, a couple months, to really figure out like what is next for me? How can I realign with what energizes me? And what do I want to create? And for me, that ended up being an entrepreneurial path where I launched a coaching business and started to lean into my real estate license. I had held my license for years, and I started to reimagine ways that I could get involved in that industry that I already had one foot in. And so, yeah, just a real like self-reflective assessment of what I was needing. And I'm super transparent about this. Like, I've been working with life coaches and in therapy for a long time. That's something to me that's a really supportive space for me to do a lot of this self-reflection. When you're experiencing burnout and you feel like you don't have enough time in the day, like, when are you taking the time to be self-reflective? And I find that, working with a counselor or a therapist or a life coach or something like that really builds that time into your schedule. You're paying for it, you're committed, you're in a contract, you're showing up and you're taking that time to work through that with someone else who can ask you powerful questions about what you want out of your life.
I want to ask, like, before you made the decision to start to leave that job,
Mm-hmm.
did you ever do like any exercises, like a time audit, or what was something before you make that decision? Because I can imagine there's a few people who are listening to this podcast episode because tomorrow will be uploaded, or you're catching the replay, or you're
Yep.
listening to it live right now. How do you identify that this is the reason, this is the source of where my burnout's coming from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that I first of all, I did invest in myself while I was still working in the other industry. So I actually signed up for a 12-week course to develop my entrepreneurial idea. So I was doing two things at once for sure. And the way that I managed that was I really had some boundaries around opening my laptop after a certain hour. Like, if it was going to just stress me out more, like, the laptop stayed closed. And I really worked my day job and I focused on this course that was energizing me to kind of like jumpstart that process of discovery for myself. And yeah, I think I don't know that I did a very specific time on it, but I definitely built in boundaries around my time. And I do that now today at an even higher level using tools like Calendly, where, like, I have time blocked out parts of my day where someone cannot book a meeting with me because I am reserving that time for something that is important to my bigger vision.
I really see what you're doing. That boundaries it looks different for everyone, but let
Mhm.
me tell you, for me personally, like, I have certain days that I do calls and at certain times, and I work around with people's schedule. I have a little bit more open time sometimes in the weekend. Like, I do things so that we can work with the time, but it's also, like you said, set those boundaries. Like, it's okay to say no. I find that saying no is hard. And for you, how do you help your clients say no?
That's a great question because so many people in ideal world, they can kind of imagine what their ideal boundaries might be, but then they have trouble, like, kind of letting the buck stop somewhere. And especially if you have a boss or a manager or a supervisor that maybe doesn't have a lot of boundaries, and so you're kind of needing to manage up and create an environment that works for you and allows you to have a healthy, work and home life. And I don't even always like to use the word balance as much as like synergy, because it's never going to be totally balanced, right? There's going to be some days where we have a really busy and packed work day and we don't have as much time for at home. But, like, as long as we can find a synergy overall that works, then we can strive to build that into our weeks and our months. But yeah, something that I work on with my clients is really starting to understand the limiting beliefs that they have around how someone else is going to receive or perceive or react to their set boundaries. So we get super worked up. We kind of overestimate what could go wrong and underestimate what could go right. And we think that if I set this boundary, like, my boss is going to hate it, they're not going to respect it, like, it's going to piss them off or whatever. And if you actually go into that conversation, and I'll do a visualization with my clients where I actually have them, like, remove the backpack that carries, like, the burden of the other person's reaction. because we are not in control of how the other person reacts to our needs. We are responsible for expressing what our needs are and staying true to that. And we don't have to walk away with the burden of their reaction. That's theirs to deal with. And so working through some of those limiting beliefs is really, really key to being able to set those boundaries.
You just unlocked such gems right now. Like the act of putting on a backpack and imagine you have these books, these rocks, the limiting beliefs. This is where I'm going to ask the audience listening, whether the podcast live replay, what is a limiting belief that you have? And what are you doing to face it? Personally, one that I struggled with for a very long time until recently was realizing my value and what I bring to clients. And it was with my current client, I had a very bad experience, but that was the point when I said, no, this is not happening again. And I know what I bring to the table to my clients. So, for you personally, what's something that you faced and how did you overcome it?
Well, I think a lot of us face imposter syndrome when we are working as entrepreneurs, launching a business. There's this constant doubt that we're good enough for what we're setting out to do. And I actually have this written right on my wall above me. And on it, it says, someone out there needs to hear it from you. So it's not, for me, in my field of coaching anyway, about being the most experienced, best coach that exists in the world. It's about connecting with people who are aligned with me, who resonate with me, and who need to hear these messages from me because they're not going to be able to hear it in the same way from somebody else. So I'm really looking to work with people who resonate with me and the work that I'm doing and who I am. I think that the more magnetic we can become in attracting clients, and we're attracting clients that want to work with us and believe in what we're doing, and then believe of the power, they believe in themselves and their ability to grow in the container space that we're holding for them in coaching.
And I want to take that for a minute and I want to give a tip to everybody who's watching or listening that when you think about when you're posting content, think about that one person that you are speaking to, whoever that person is. Give them a name and then just speak directly to them that one piece of advice. Because so many times we think that we want to speak to everybody. But I loved your quote that said, there's somebody out there that needs to hear it from you. That's exactly what that means. Identify who that person is, that one person, and that one piece of advice, and you'll be so surprised that they will either they will comment, like, or they'll text you, call you, or get in your DMs. I promise this. I mean, I don't like to promise, but I can say in all my 5 years of doing this, live streaming, posting content, I can tell you when I started to get more focused like that, my phone is going off and I'm simply like, I think it's crazy when people talk about it, but it's true.
Yep.
Somebody will really reach out and say, I needed to hear that.
Yes. And
So
the more vulnerable and authentic that I get, and I notice that other people's get, the more interaction you receive. People will reach out when you're showing up authentically and vulnerably. If you're just showing up online and just you're the same as everyone else, like, it's not going to resonate with anyone.
right, like get in the nitty gritty and say, look, my personal story is I was crying 4 years ago on a live. Somebody asked me, what is something I'm working on? My biggest obstacle. And I said, believing in my value. I really did. And then just a few weeks ago, my client recording content for them, and one of the employees got combative with me. And I said, oh, no, 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 no. I know what I'm doing. This is not what we're being. No, we don't do that. I know what I bring to the table, and we're not doing this. Like, this is
Mhm.
how we're going to do it going forward. And the client was on board with it. And I
Yeah.
was I would have been scared 3 years ago, 4 years ago to say that, but now I'm like, "No, we're not
Mhm.
gonna do that."
Yep, yep.
So, when you like, you mentioned that you are in real estate. So, what are some common traits that you see with real estate agents that you help them identify, like, you're hitting burnout and we need to start delegating?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, if you are spending every day just working in your business and not on your business, then you are burnt out and you're not maximizing your time to its full potential. It's really important as a business owner and a team leader to take the time in the day and, you have to visit your vision daily, weekly, monthly, and ask yourself questions like, this activity that I'm taking an hour to do, like, how is it connected to my overall goals? Like, really understand why and ask yourself that question. Like, what am I getting out of spending my hour this way? And so, yeah, I think that's a really common thing is people get so caught up in the minutia of the day to day that they don't get to work on their business. They're just working in it. And I do think that that's where hiring assistants and team members to come in and help can be really huge. And you need to kind of be able to zoom out on your business to assess if you're ready for that. And if you have it in your budget to do that, how much is your time worth? And if you were to hire someone else for that role, how much time is that giving you back to focus on different, maybe higher earning money activities?
So when you are hiring and looking for someone to take away some of the roles that you're doing so you can focus on other things in your business, what is some tip that you share with your clients when you hire someone you might want to do, and what is that might want to do so that they can have an effective like transition from I'm not doing this anymore and now you are?
Yep. I think first and foremost, you personally, whether it be on your own or with, guided prompts that you can get for free online or paying for a coach, like you can do it any which way that works for you, but you need to zoom out and you need to ask yourself, what is my vision for my business? And what are my values? And you need to get really clear on those things in order to go out there and hire other people who are aligned with your vision and your values. Because if you don't know what your vision and your values are, then you can't hire with intention. You'll just end up hiring, you know, whoever is available and applies. This is a difficult job market out there right now. You go on LinkedIn, you look at jobs, like there's like 1,000 applicants for a job, right? So the more you can niche down on your vision and your values, the more you can attract people who resonate with those. And then something that I'm learning right now, actually, in Unreasonable Hospitality, it's a book by Will Guidara, who's the creator of The Bear on Hulu FX. He is notorious for running one of the best restaurants in New York City, like world renowned restaurant. And something that he talks about in that book is hire slow, fire fast.
Mhm.
And you don't want to, it's turnover costs a lot. So, when you're really hurting and you're going through burnout, like you could scramble just to get anyone in the door to help you to get some of your time back. But I would actually encourage someone to, how can you clean up your schedule a little bit? Like, what can you sacrifice in the short term to create more time in your day to hire the right person versus keeping everything that's currently on your plate, scrambling, hiring the wrong person, and then having to, let them go 2 months from now, because that really costs you a lot of time and money.
That's a smart thing to do, like, really think about the values and what you need to what does this big picture look like? Because
Mhm.
again, it goes back to if you don't see your tunnel vision, you won't see everything else.
Yep.
So, I wanna make sure everybody knows, where do we go about connecting with you, finding you, hiring you to work with you?
Sure. You can visit my website. It's just my name, www.colbycasoria.com. You can book a free discovery call with me on there where we will basically dig into what your goals are. We'll uncover what that vision is. We'll really dig into what some of those obstacles are. And this is meant to be like a self-contained call. So you might come into this call and get everything that you need to move forth in your business, in a really energized and intentional way. Or you might say, I want to sign up for this and do this every week or every other week. And I need this accountability. And I want to have this weekly container to come in and focus on my business, not just be in my business. So yeah, they can find me on there. They can find me on Instagram. It's just my handle is at Colby Casoria on Instagram. I'm really accessible. So reach out to me on either of those, ways, and you'll hear back from me 100%.
I mean, if you're watching this on YouTube, you already see the links there. If you're catching this on the podcast platforms, you'll have the links there. And I also drop the links in the comments right now on LinkedIn. And, she's really nice. Like, she doesn't bite. She will connect with you unless if you're a little bit weird, then she might not. But
I love connecting with people. It's one of my favorite things. I really thrive in just being a connector, putting people into if you reach out to me and it's not the right fit for you and I will put you in touch with someone who is the right fit for you. I kind of think of myself as a traffic director in that sense. So I thrive on that stuff.
well, there you have it. So let me ask you a very hard question.
Okay.
What is something that you wish you knew before becoming an entrepreneur?
That's a great question. I think that, people look at entrepreneurship as, oh, I'll have freedom because I won't be like working for the man in a 9 to 5. But the reality is it's not necessarily freedom as much as it is flexibility. And to me, flexibility feels like freedom, but it doesn't come without discipline and really taking a hard look at your limiting beliefs and your weaknesses and figuring out how you can either develop the skills for that or partner with people who are going to, get you there. Because you can try to go there alone, and you might get there faster, but if you go with people, you will get farther. And so alliances are a huge thing for me. And I would really recommend, if you're getting into entrepreneurship, to seek out partnerships that are going to support you.
I love that piece of advice because that was something that I learned the hard way. However, because I was interviewing entrepreneurs, that was my mastermind. I was
Mhm.
learning every week. And this is, I would say, what helped me be able to understand what I needed to do, especially when I became a full-time entrepreneur. So
Yep.
this is what we're going to do. We're going to stop here because we're going to continue this conversation and invite you to come and join us on Instagram, where we'll ask even more questions and learn more about Colby. But I definitely want to invite all of you because next week is the 5th-year anniversary of this whole podcast, this whole live streaming show. It started on Instagram and has grew and went on to other platforms. And I would love to share what lessons and just share that I am so thankful to have been able to carry this on for 5 years. Like, there's a lot of people that I know that started the same time that I did, but are not where I am. They're doing other things. Like, podcasting is not easy. Doing this every week is not easy. Colby, you go live, I think, every week with a guest?
I wish I went every week. No, I haven't been going every week, but I'm not afraid of Instagram Live, and I have a Calendly link, and I'm pretty sure it's in my Instagram bio. So if anyone ever wants to book an Instagram Live with me, come on and get exposed to my audience. You can go to my link tree and we can schedule something.
I've been on it. I would highly recommend. If she told me to write a review, I'd write a review. And I'm telling the review now. Like, she has really good questions. She gets get her guests to think about things outside of the box, and you will have a lot of fun. So definitely check it out. But like I said, we're going to end it here for now. But we're going
Great.
to go to Instagram. I want to say thank you to you, Colby, for just being here, sharing with us all the amazing, juicy gems that you shared. And I want to thank everybody who tuned in to the live, the replay, the YouTube live, the podcast. I mean, there's a lot of ways to say thank you. So,
Thank you. This was so fun, such a treat.
well, until the next live, which is next week, have a wonderful evening or morning. Bye, everybody.